This video, I'm going to show you the difference between a wanderer soul and a walk-in soul. I'm going to show you the signs to know if you are one. Chances are you could be either one of these if you're watching this video right now, and I'm going to show you exactly how to know. Welcome back to another video. My name's Aaron, and I help people expand their consciousness. Now in this video, I'm going to be showing you the difference between wanderer soul and walk-in soul, like I said a minute ago, and I'm going to show you the signs to know. Now, you only perceive that which you are the vibration of. So a lot of you watching this video right now would only have found this video if you were possibly one of these two types of souls. Or you're meant to understand more about the potentials for your soul than you think. Because the underlying premise of understanding this is, first off, you are an eternal spiritual being dreaming you are this little physical human 3D body. You are so much more than you can imagine. And we all are what are called multidimensional. We exist at many different levels of consciousness at the same time. So when we talk about, I made videos on Starseeds before, and those videos tend to do quite well. A lot of people see them. And people ask me questions about Starseeds. And are they a Starseed? Are you Starseed? Every single person on the planet exists at different levels of consciousness. Now, what we call a starseed is someone that's aware of the connections they have to the stars. But us as eternal spiritual beings are so vast as souls that we do not just exist on Earth. We are too vast to do so. We have existence, and Earth also is more of a 3-4D experience. We exist at many, so what about your 5, 6, 7D, whatever experience? These are just labels we put onto understanding realities, dimensional understandings, but nonetheless, we are eternal spiritual beings. So maybe you didn't know that before you clicked on this video, but now you know. Well, you know, maybe you've got to go within yourself to really know this, rather than some just guy on YouTube wearing a Hogwarts sweater telling you what to think. I do like Hogwarts though. I think the reason I like Hogwarts so much is because Hogwarts, with like Harry Potter, is because Harry Potter is like a very magical place, but I think in higher dimensions, magic is like who we are. Magic is a natural part of reality. I think magic is a part of this reality if we allow ourselves to have that kind of experience. But in general, not to get too off tangent here, I like Harry Potter. Anyways, wanderer souls versus walk-in souls. So let me tell you a little story. I went to Bashar conference. You guys don't know who Bashar is? Bashar is channeled by Daryl Anka, one of the most legit channelers of our time, I believe. And he has these conferences that you go to where you ask questions and he answers them. And he does like a dialogue in the beginning of like 10 to 15 minutes. And then after that, what he does is he just sits there for questions and answers. So what happened was, I'm gonna kind of move this around a little bit. So was this the first time I ever went? I don't remember. The first or second time I ever went to a Bashar conference or a Bashar event, I got to ask a question. I remember I was one of the last people to ask a question in the first session. There's two sessions. There's one from like 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock, and then one from like 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. There's like a 2-hour lunch break. But right before we went up to lunch break, I got to ask a question. And I asked a couple questions. I asked about enlightenment, and I had questions about like the belief systems of enlightenment, which I recently asked a follow-up question to because I saw him recently as well. The other question I asked him though was about wanderers. I said, is Eckhart Tolle, who's the guy from the book Power versus Force, who's like very, very present to the moment. I asked him, I said, yo Bashar, I said, is Eckhart Tolle, is he a wanderer? Now, I did not mean to ask wanderer. I wasn't interested really whether he was a wanderer or not. I was interested if he was what is called a walk-in. Now, let me share with you the difference between the two and why I thought Eckhart Tolle was a walk-in. Eckhart Tolle explains in the first chapter of his book, The Power of Now, that he had this experience where he was feeling so negative, he was so identified with his thinking, he was in depression, he did not enjoy life at all, and he was going home, he lived in England or something like that, and he went home and he was laying in bed, and he had this void experience where he realized he was thinking, I cannot live with myself any longer. I cannot live with myself any longer. He realized there was an I and a myself. So there was two versions of him. So in the moment he realized there were these two versions of him, he had this realization that there was this ego and consciousness perspective, and that mind blew him. But then what happened is he went into this void. And in this void, he said he doesn't remember much of what happened, but that when he came back, he was enlightened. When he came back, he had this experience of walking around, and everything felt new for the first time. He was able to observe his thoughts in a way that he never had been able to before, and he started to feel blissful. He stayed on a park bench for a year, just living there, because he was so happy in ecstasy. And he just felt so present to the moment. Now, he said even after he came back, he changed his name. He changed his name from whatever it was before. It was some long name that was hard to pronounce, to Eckhart Tolle. And I think he said he got that in a vision or something like that, in a dream or a vision. He saw Eckhart Tolle written on a book or something. He knew that was his new name. It's his new identity in a way. So he had this desire to change his identity. So a walk-in soul is sometimes, what will happen is certain souls will have a intention to leave the planet, and then what will happen is another soul of a different frequency with a different purpose, normally these are souls with a certain type of purpose, will come in place in the body and take over that body and live the rest of the life out. The rest of the life out with a certain type of mission. So I was asking that because Eckhart Tolle had a certain life, and then all of a sudden he has a very different life. And I was asking if he was a walk-in, but for some reason, when I was in the Bashar thing, and I asked Bashar, I said wanderer. I said he's a wanderer soul. I don't know why in my mind I got them mixed up. What he said was that Eckhart soul was a form of wanderer. He's a form of wanderer, which I found was interesting. But a walk-in soul, there's a guy named Junvalo Melchizedek. Let me show you. Junvalo Melchizedek. He wrote these books right over here. He was a walk-in soul as well. A walk-in normally will happen when somebody has a death experience, some type of NDE. They are unhappy with their lives, and then something happens and they come back and they're completely changed, completely different person. Sometimes though, that's just the soul that's had an NDE and realized their spiritual consciousness or something, and then they change their life. Sometimes that's all it is. But sometimes there's this book called The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life. There's this guy named Junvalo, who is this guy right here. He, from what I understand, is a walk-in, and he talks about it. He talks about him having a soul agreement with the body of the person before it was Junvalo Melchizedek, and saying that at a certain time in his life, they would switch. It was there was this NDE experience that was planned out in a way at a higher level, and then what happened is there's a couple minute period where the soul can come into the body and the other soul leaves. It's an agreement. And he said also that it was a very good deal for the soul that was in that body before, that housed that body. So that'll happen when a walk-in will happen when somebody has a big mission and something they want to accomplish on earth, but they don't necessarily want to have a physical body their whole entire life. So because if you forget who you are, everyone almost forgets who they are as spiritual beings when they're born. There is a chance that some of these people get lost in karma. They get lost in the dimension itself. That's why a lot of people are helping people to wake up on the planet right now. Because we've come here to shift to the level of consciousness, but some of the people that were born forgot who they are. So they're getting kind of lost in that karma or confused in it. So what a walk-in is somebody had a certain life experience, may have been having a rough time, or just decided that at a certain point they would swap with a different soul, and the different soul they swapped with may have been another version of them. Maybe it's not a completely different soul. Maybe it's a different version of them. Maybe it's a soul from a similar oversoul. I don't know. But when I've studied this, what I do have come to the conclusion of is that it's normally with some type of purpose that somebody will switch and then come in and then live out a certain life with a certain purpose in mind. So is Eckhart Tolle a walk-in? I don't know. Actually, the more I think about this, I think walk-ins are actually pretty rare because you've had to have like an NDE experience, some type of near-death experience for that to happen. But there's been many times, I think many people are like, I had a moment in my life when everything in my life changed, which is me too. I've had moments when everything in my life changed. And for a while I thought I was a walk-in, but I don't think I am now. I think it was just a shift in consciousness. And this isn't a scary thing, by the way. It's just, when that walk-in comes in as well, the person that's in it before, like, leaves, like, has like a transitionary experience, so we wouldn't know. Like, you would be the walk-in soul that would have came in if that was the case. However, it's something that's agreed upon a higher level, so realize that. And that person the soul that walked in would also take on the karma, would also take on the thought patterns and all the memories, would still have the memories, so it may not even really know it's a walk-in or not. I think a lot of people that would be walk-ins would probably have no idea consciously. So something else I wanted to share. So one of the most powerful channelings of all time, besides Bashar, is the raw materials. The raw materials. It's called the Law of One. And in it, it's some of the most profound channelings. Some of it's kind of harder to understand because of like the language that's used. But nonetheless, it's, if you guys know David Wilcock, he talks a lot about the raw materials. And it has to do, he talked a lot about a harvest. It's back in the 70s and the 80s. Said that in the future, in like the 2000s and beyond, there'd be this harvest. This harvest is this shift in consciousness that's happening right now on the planet. It was talked about a long time ago, and it has to do with this shift in consciousness where more and more souls have the ability to graduate to a higher state of consciousness. We're going in body from a 3rd density level of body to a 4th density level of consciousness. So we're going through this right now. Now, a wanderer, I'm going to explain to you a little bit about wanderers from the perspective of Ra, because this will explain it in a pretty cool way. So the questioner, who, just to give you context, Ra was channeled from a lady named Carla. And there were years and years of it, and there's like 4 or 5 different books on it, of just the raw material itself, and then more other than that. And it's question and answers, so it's her husband asking the questions, and then the questioner, the person answering the question is Ra. So here is the explanation of it. Questioner, you spoke of wanderers. Who are wanderers and where do they come from? Ra says, imagine, if you will, the sands of your shores. As countless as the grains of sands are the sources of intelligent infinity. When a social memory complex has achieved its complete understanding of its desire, it may conclude that its desire is service to others with the distortion towards reaching out their hand figuratively to any entities who call for aid. These entities, whom you call the brothers and sisters of sorrow, have moved towards the calling of sorrow. These entities are from all reaches of the infinite creation, are bound together by the desire to serve in this distortion. Entities are from the reaches of infinite creation, bound together in desire to serve into Earth's 3D. So this is what that kind of means. These entities, after they've evolved to a certain point, say, you know what? One of the things I want to do is be service to others. Be service to others, which means add value to other people, help everyone else ascend. So a lot of in the raw materials what's talked about is this idea of service to self and service to others. In order to ascend into this harvest, what is said is that you must be 51% or more service to others, which means an intention to add value to other people, not just self-seeking, ego-gratifying. If you're 51% or more service to self, then that causes you not to ascend. I think these percentages aren't the most important thing to understand. I think they're just references. I don't know how you would calibrate someone, oh, they're 52%, yes, they can ascend. I think it's a gradual thing that's happening regardless. But what it said is that these wanderers are higher vibrational beings that have decided to come back to help other people to transcend out of the 3D, 4D illusion. So that's what a wanderer is. So the questioner then says, how many of them are incarnate on earth now? What Ra says is the number is approximate due to the heavy influx of those birthed at this time due to an intensive need to lighten the planetary vibration and thus aid in the harvest. The number approaches 65 million. This was back in the 70s. My guess is this number is exponentially higher now. So many people on the planet right now are wanderers, which means they come from higher vibrational states of consciousness to help other people wake up. My guess is that you watching this video may be a wanderer right now. You may be a wanderer. And a wanderer is here to help awaken other people, to help remind people of who they are. This is it's a form of starseed. You can be a wanderer and a starseed. All these little labels, we can identify with them if we choose to, but remember, you are an eternal spiritual being having a temporary human experience. That's the most solid thing I think it's important to understand, because we get lost in these labels sometimes. But they're cool to think about, because we are so much more than we can imagine. Now the questioner says, are most of these from the fourth density, like the fourth dimension? Or what dimension or density do they come from? So in general, a fourth density being is like service to others, but also a little bit service to self. This is also what could be referred to as like the astral planets. Fourth density beings would come from astral planets. Fifth density would be that of love, would be a density of love. And then sixth density is that of love, but also of a density of unity, of understanding that we're all one. So, and then third density is like the ego, control, duality. So there are these different densities and different realms of explanation. So what Ra says is, few are from fourth density. The largest number of wanderers, as you call them, are sixth density. The desire to serve must be distorted towards a great deal of purity of mind and what you call foolhardiness or bravery, depending upon your distortion and complex judgment. The challenge danger of the wanderer is that it will forget its mission, become karmically involved, and thus be swept into the maelstrom of what it had to incarnated to avert this destruction. It had incarnated to revert. So the idea is that these wanderers come here with the intention of waking up, going through a spiritual awakening like maybe you have gone through, and then helping other souls to evolve. But we're under this karmic reality. So some people just develop the karmic and they never actually wake up. Or they may get through and numb their spiritual awakening. They may numb it with some form of drugs and alcohol, instead of actually going through the process of really waking up. So, wanderers versus walk-ins. Are you one? That's kind of dramatic, but are you one? Most likely everyone's a starseed. Everyone is multidimensional, whether they're aware of it or not. A starseed is someone just who's aware of their connection to the stars. A wanderer, I believe a lot of the people watching this video are wanderers, are people that come from higher dimensional states of consciousness to help remind other people. You may have been lost in the karmic cycle, not knowing who you are as a spiritual being, but I think now more and more people are becoming aware so that they can deplug themselves from building up more and more karma. And I think that some of us may be walk-ins. I think walk-ins are much more rare than wanderers. I think obviously if there's 65 million wanderers back in the 70s, there's so many more of them now. I think very much any soul being born 1990s and beyond has this connection that they have this ability to wake up much more than other souls. So leave a comment below, let me know what you think about wanderers versus walk-ins. And if you want as well, I have a Starseed DNA activation meditation, which will help you remember a lot of these. It'll help to lighten up, to activate light codes within you, is what we could call them as light codes. You're just activating different markers within you to remember more of who you are. It's a very powerful meditation. You can read the comments below to see what is possible. Also, the only way you will see these future videos on YouTube is if you push the notification bell, because YouTube will only show you random videos if you don't do that. So if you want to see the daily videos, I got a lot more good stuff coming. Hit the notification bell below. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to like this video if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell I already said that. Peace, much love, and namaste.